Hey guys, this is Holland with the Wolverine.com. Before we dive into this week's episode of the Road Report, I want to remind you guys to subscribe to the Wolverine.com right now. Just $10 until next football season. What better week to subscribe to the Wolverine than Hate Week? You want a subscription, you want the latest intel not only on recruiting, but on the team, all the injuries and everything going on heading into the game against Ohio State. So for all the latest team information as well as recruiting information, sign up for the Wolverine right now, just $10 until next football season. That's $10 until August of 2023. All right, guys, I was on the road in Chicagoland this week, so back around the Windy City, made the swings and saw 9 recruits with Michigan offers, including a pair of 2023 commits. So let's go ahead and start off with 2023, and we'll work our way down into the underclassmen. Actually, the only recruit I had a chance to see do anything live was Brooks Bahr. You know, playoffs are winding down in the state of Illinois. Bahr and Loyola Academy are going on to the state finals. So Bahr, a 3-star defensive lineman, has been committed to Michigan for a long time. He's stayed completely solid throughout the process, has a great relationship with Mike Elston, isn't really worried about anything recruiting related. Illinois did try to come back on him late, but he's still sticking with Michigan, so nothing to worry about with Brooks Bahr. As far as him as a player, he helped lead Loyola to a win over Elmhurst York in the state semifinals this weekend in freezing temperatures. Brooks wasn't super productive in the sense that he racked up a bunch of tackles and sacks and all of that. He only had 2 tackles, 1 quarterback hurry, and a pass deflection. But when you look at Brooks's overall body of work in that game, it more so had to do with him getting a lot of extra attention. He had to, face double teams quite often, but taking up multiple blockers allowed others around him to make plays, and that's why Loyola held York to who was previously unbeaten to just 3 points. Now, Brooks definitely passes the eye test. He's every bit of 6'6", 275 pounds. Now, this guy is absolutely huge, but I do think that Bahr is still figuring out how to get comfortable with his body. He didn't add a lot of weight until this calendar year. So he shot up from around 240 to what he is now, 275, and he hit a little bit of a late growth spurt as well. So I still think he's getting acclimated to playing with the extra weight. But he definitely, again, looks the part on the hoof. He's a guy that you're like, wow, man, this kid has a chance to really be something. So Michigan recruiting him as a 3-tech. I do think he still has even more room to add weight in the right places, especially in his lower half. So I could easily see him playing upwards of close to 300 pounds. And while Brooks isn't necessarily overly athletic or flexible, I do think he's a guy that plays with really good power, really great technique. I think he just has a high floor while still having a high upside as well. Again, I think with Brooks, it's going to be about getting him to be comfortable with his body, kind of redistributing that weight that he put on, and adding a little bit more. And I think with him going to Michigan, obviously he gets one of the best in the country as far as strength coaches in Ben Herbert. So I think Herbert will maximize what Brooks Bahr can be. And then on top of that, he gets one of the best teachers in the country in defensive line coach Mike Elston. So right now, Brooks is a little bit of a project in a sense. But again, he's a project that's very technically sound, so and very well coached and disciplined and all that good stuff. So again, he's a little bit of a unique prospect from an evaluation perspective. It's usually when you talk about kids that have high ceilings, you are talking about kids that are pretty raw technically, but that's not necessarily the what Bahr is. He's very technically sound. It's more so just, again, kind of reshaping that body, getting comfortable, with his body, and we'll see kind of how he pans out. I do think Brooks is going to need a redshirt year and probably a year or two after that before he gets significant time in the rotation. But a few years from now, we could be saying, wow, there's Brooks Bahr. He's making an impact. And, we completely forgot about him because he was buried on the roster. So right now I would grade Brooks as kind of a mid to high 3-star, but he could easily outplay that ranking. I think a lot just depends on how he develops at the University of Michigan. So again, Brooks Bahr was the only recruit on this Chicagoland swing that I had a chance to see live in terms of actually doing something, but I did stop by various high schools and met with kids. So we'll quickly go through some of the rest of the guys I had a chance to see. Deacon Tonielli, 4-star tight end out of Oswego, way out in the Chicago suburbs. Tonielli is, I think, one of the least talked about recruits in this class, which is interesting because he's one of the more highly rated recruits in the class, at least when it comes to On3. I know other sites have him as a 3-star, but On3 has him as a 4-star, and I actually agree with that ranking. I do have Deacon ranked as a low 4-star. I think he has great athletic ability. This is a kid that often split time between football and basketball. He was a really good hoops player for his high school, so he's never really had time to dedicate himself fully to the sport of football, and that's why I'm really excited about his upside. I think he's a guy that once he actually dedicates himself to football, the sky's the limit. On top of that, he's 6'6". He's listed at 215, but he's bulked up a little bit. He's right at around 225 pounds. I think he can carry another 20 pounds. And on top of that, he's also developing a really good relationship with Colston Loveland already. And you're seeing Colston making an impact right away. But I think having Loveland as a mentor, which Loveland's already taking on that role, will definitely help him once he gets to Michigan. So Tonielli has that athleticism. He has the size. He can jump out of the gym thanks to his basketball background. When I saw him in game this year, he was extremely productive, scored a pair of touchdowns. So I personally am excited about Tonielli. I know, again, he's not very talked about, but I think he's kind of that next guy in the line of tight ends that Michigan has been able to land and produce. I think Tonielli is going to open a lot of eyes. And the only really, concern I have about him is, can he be a true inline guy? Can he block from the inline position? Can he learn to run routes from the inline position? He did it a little bit this year. He hadn't really done it before during his high school career, and he looked good at doing it. I still think there's some room for improvement as a true inline tight end. But as a flex end, he's very impressive. And again, he has the frame to carry the weight, and I'm excited to see what he turns into. I think a lot of people are really undervaluing Deacon Tonielli this cycle. Now, the Chicagoland area is home to a couple of other 2023 recruits that are uncommitted, and two of them are recent offers in Trey Pierce, who is also listed as Roderick Pierce, but he goes by Trey, and Jamel Howard. So I had a chance to stop by both of their schools on the south side and had a great time chatting with both of them. Let's go ahead and start off with Trey Pierce, 3-star defensive lineman from Brother Rice. He is committed to Wisconsin, coming off his official visit to Michigan this weekend. He also made an unofficial visit for the game against Michigan State. And I'm going to give away a secret. Trey is going to be our recruit of the week, so we won't talk too much about his skill set. I will tell you, we'll expand more on that video, which is to come. But I will tell you that Trey is the priority as a 3 technique for Michigan. He had a really, really strong senior year. I love his build. He's not super tall at about 6'2.5", but he kind of plays in a little bit of a similar fashion as Mason Graham and is built a little like him as well. Now, I'm not saying that I love Trey as much as I loved Mason as a recruit, because I was extremely high on Mason, but I do think Trey has a similar type of game, and that really kind of shone through as a senior. As far as his recruitment, like I said, he's committed to Wisconsin. I think Michigan is the favorite to flip him. I'd be surprised if he stuck with the Badgers. Illinois is set to get him in for an OV. Texas is set to get him in for an OV. But he did tell me he wants to get back to Michigan before making a decision on signing day during the early period. I guess we should just go ahead and call it National Signing Day because that's what it's become. But I like where the Wolverines stand there. I also like where Michigan stands with Jyaire Howard. He's more of a nose take, and obviously Michigan missed out on its top target there in Caden McDonald, so Jyaire Howard has emerged as the guy at nose. He's 6'3", 300 pounds, out of Chicago Marist, which is the same high school that produced Jimmy Rolder last cycle. Not as much as Rolder, but kind of like Rolder. Howard has had a little bit of a late rise here. Some more schools are starting to show attention to him. He was committed to Wisconsin for several months, recently backed out of his verbal pledge there and opened things up. I think Michigan is the clear-cut favorite here. I would say Illinois would be the biggest threat to the Wolverines, but Jyaire did make an unofficial visit to Michigan over the weekend and took in the game, and he is set to be back for an OV in December. I think if things go well on his OV, then Michigan can seal the deal there. But I really like his tape. I think he's undervalued as more of a mid to low 3-star right now. But I think once people see his senior tape, you see a guy that definitely has 4-star potential. And same with Trey. I think both of those guys have 4-star potential when the rankings get updated again, which I guess they just dropped this week, but I know it's tough to see everybody's senior tape, but those two in particular, I think, have chances to move up once they redo the rankings again on signing day. But anyway, I also had a chance to drive down out of Chicagoland to Kankakee, Illinois, which is home to on 300 defensive back Jyaire Hill, one of the biggest risers in this rankings update, moving up close to 100 spots. And everybody knows I've been high on the Jyaire train for a long time, ever since I went out to see Jyaire last fall. He was unranked, and I said, this is a kid that's going to be top 150 by the end of next cycle, and sure enough, he is top 150. So very, very happy for Jyaire. He deserves it. He's a hell of an athlete. He's Michigan's top cornerback recruit for a reason. I mean, this kid is 6'2.5", 175 pounds, and he's a legit 6'2.5". I've seen him listed like at 6'1". I'm 6'1", and he has at least an inch and a half on me, so he definitely passes the EJ height test, which a lot of recruits don't end up passing. But Jaire's legit 6'2.5", 175, super long, great track athlete as well, runs a 10.78, 100 meters, so the speed is obviously there. He's a guy that plays both ways for his high school team. Had a great year in the secondary, playing more as a safety, but also saw time at corner and nickel. And then he proved to be one of the most explosive offensive players in the state of Illinois over the last couple of years. So Jyaire checks a lot of boxes. I think Jyaire would have even more national attention if he wasn't such a homebody. But you've seen SEC schools make a push for him here recently. Auburn and Florida have both tried to get him on campus, but I still think this is a Michigan-Illinois battle. I think Michigan helped itself a lot on his weekend visit. Obviously, the win over Illinois helped, but at the same time, Illinois can sell the future in keeping that game close. So this recruitment's still tight, but I would say that, that Michigan really helped itself over the weekend. And when I went out to meet Jyaire, one of the things that stood out to me that he said that he never had really said before, which had always been an advantage for Illinois, was, I can see myself playing right away at Michigan. And he knows that there's opportunity at the cornerback spot. You know, Illinois has always sold him on being the guy and playing as a true freshman. Well, you know, you look at Michigan, and if DJ Turner leaves, if Jamon Green leaves, that just leaves Will Johnson as the guy with experience at the corner spot. So competition would be wide open in that scenario. And I think Jyaire finally understands that. And he also understands that he is the priority on the corner board, Michigan has no commits in the secondary overall. So, again, I think the Wolverines are right up there as Jyaire looks to make a decision sometime in early December, so just a few weeks away. So those were the 2023 kids I saw, so 5 there. I saw 3 recruits in the 2024 class. We'll briefly touch on them since we've kind of run pretty long this week. Amarion Stewart, 4-star wide receiver out of Bolingbrook. Have always loved Amarion ever since he was a freshman in high school. He was one of the first recruits I ever met when I moved out to Chicago. Great kid, just kind of fits that Michigan mold. On top of that, again, he's an explosive slot receiver that can line up out wide as well. He's about 6'1.5", really long arms, slender build, kind of that guy that takes over, that has the build to take over college football. You know, you want that longer, skinnier guy that can play, that you can do multiple things with, where you can plug him outside, you can plug him in the slot, you can run jet sweeps with him. That's the type of kid Amarion is. He had a really strong junior season, and he is a priority for the Wolverines. I think Michigan has the early lead for him. Justin Scott, top 100 defensive lineman out of Chicago's St. Ignatius. Very, very impressive prospect. I think that Scott has a chance to be a top 5 player in the country next cycle. Right now, he's ranked as the number 16 overall recruit. And, he checks all the boxes. I mean, he's a legit 6'4", 305 pounds. This is normally used for an offensive line, but he is a dancing bear. He starts both ways. He's super athletic. He has a basketball background. He didn't start playing football until he got to high school, so he's still kind of coming along from a technical standpoint. But, man, all the physical and athletic gifts are there for Justin Scott to be an absolute monster, and he already is one here at the high school level. He is a priority for Michigan next cycle. The Wolverines hosted him for the game against Michigan State, and Michigan is right up there, along with schools like Alabama, Notre Dame, and Ohio State. Last 2024 recruit I had a chance to see was 3-star defensive lineman Eddie Twerk. Eddie's a really interesting prospect. He's being recruited as both a defensive lineman and offensive lineman, more so a defensive lineman, though. He plays with great technique, great power, has a great build, kind of a little similar to Brooks Bahr, I guess, in playing style. Brooks is a little bit of a bigger kid, where Eddie is a little more compact, but they do play with that same type of technique, that same type of power. They move kind of similar. I think Eddie's a little undervalued as a 3-star prospect. I think he's a guy that'll get a bump eventually, especially with the flexibility to play on either side of the lines. His recruitment early on has a nice Big Ten flavor to it, with Michigan really high up on his list, Iowa high up on his list, Wisconsin, also an outlier there with Tennessee high on his list as well. But I think if Michigan makes a big push for Eddie, then I think the Wolverines will have a really, really good shot at landing him. And lastly, in the 2025 class, I had a chance to see wide receiver Quinn Morris out of Plainfield East. Tyler Morris, his older brother, was one of my favorite recruits to cover on the Michigan beat, and really excited to see what Quinn turns into. He picked up an early offer from Michigan, has been to a lot of games already. Michigan is definitely the early favorite. And when I've seen Quinn in off-season events, he's definitely flashed. But again, really excited to see what he turns into. The Morris family is terrific. Tyler was great to cover, and looking forward to covering Quinn for a few more years as well. So that was my Chicagoland swing roundup. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to the Wolverine for more intel from this trip, as well as all Michigan recruiting, everything happening right now as we head towards the early signing period. Obviously, Michigan had a big recruiting weekend as well, so now is a great time to sign up for the Wolverine.com. Again, that's $10 until next football season. Make sure to leave this video a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel. It is completely free, and go blue.